Everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everyone's Books and Tea. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I'm super excited about. Today we are going to be discussing the 8 books that I'm looking forward to that are going to be released between the months of March and May. So the spring new releases. These 8 books will then be added to our new book release jar that we use when we play our monthly TBR game. So you may see some of these books coming up when we pull books out of this jar. So the way I choose these 8 books is I basically scroll through the new releases that are coming out and kind of choose the ones that look interesting to me as far as the plot goes. A lot of these are books by authors I have never read before. There's some that are the author's first novels on here as well. So I'm excited to see how I like these when I get around to reading them. And hopefully, I've made some good choices because, they could end up on my monthly TBR. All right, let's get started. I have all my notes on my iPad about each of these books. So let's go ahead and talk about the first one. So, our first book is What Wakes the Bells by Ella Tesh. This is her debut novel, so obviously, I have never read a book by her before. This is a fantasy gothic young adult novel that is coming out on March 11th, 2025. What really drew me in for this book was the cover. I felt like it's a very beautifully done cover with a lot of detail, and it really gives you what the atmosphere of the book is going to be like. So, the blurb that they gave for this book is that it is inspired by an ominous Prague legend. What Wakes the Bells is a lavish gothic fantasy by debut author Elle Tesh. That was the other part that really drew me in. There's a lot of books out there based on Celtic mythology, Asian mythology, but I don't think I've ever read a book based on a legend of Prague. So this book follows Mina, whose family's thousand-year legacy is to keep the Vespers, the bells from ringing, in the city of her hometown known as Vaywyn. It's spelled Vaywyn. If the bells ring, the legend has it that a slumbering evil will awake. Mina is one of the keepers of the spell, and one afternoon, much to her horror, her bell rings 13 times, shattering the peace of the city. The city begins to wake up, and I don't mean the people in the city. The stone gargoyles and bronze statues tear away from their pedestals and buildings and begin to hunt the people in the streets. Not not really what you want in a city. What was trapped in Mina's bell is the soul of a twisted and power hungry saint, and he is now free of his prison. He begins corrupting the city and turning the city on itself. The only chance Mina has to stop the destruction and the horrific killings that are happening in her city is to find and destroy the saint's host. Everyone is a suspect, even those who are closest to Mina. The book asks the question, how far is she willing to go to save her city, and who is she willing to kill to do it? So I'm excited for this one. It definitely has a atmospheric vibe to just the synopsis, so I'm interested to see how the book is written in of itself. The author blurb that is on this book comes from Nikki Pal Preto, who's the best-selling author of Bonesmith, and the blurb says, What Wakes the Bell is a haunting page-turning mystery set in a exquisitely wrought Gothic city where ancient beauty and eldritch horrors walk side by side. The lush prose, immersive world building, and ominous atmosphere make for a thrilling and unique YA fantasy debut. So I felt that was a pretty strong blurb. She's talking about how the prose is good, the world building is good, and this kind of like ominous Gothic atmosphere. I think this is going to be a great read, and I'm looking forward to when it comes out. So next up is The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami. I will say I'm very much not a fan of this cover. It just doesn't really do anything for me. And honestly, if I didn't read the blurb, it would probably push me away from reading this book. This book, though, is a science fiction slash dystopia book that is coming out on March 4th, 2025. The author had a prior book known as The Moor's Account, which was a historical fiction novel and was longlisted for the Booker Prize and a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in fiction. So she has a pretty strong background in writing. This may be her first venture into kind of like the dystopian science fiction genre, though, so we'll kind of see how she does with that. So the blurb for this book is that it is a riveting and utterly original novel about one woman's fight for freedom, set in a near future where even dreams are under surveillance. I can't say that word. I don't know why. Surveillance. It always gets me. So this book follows Sarah, who has just landed at LAX after being out of the country for a conference for work when she is pulled aside by the Risk Assessment Administration, known as the RAA. The agents of the RAA tell her that she will soon commit a crime, which was found by using data from her dreams. The RAA algorithm has determined that she is at imminent risk of harming the person she loves the most, her husband. Because of this, Sarah is transferred to a retention center where she is held with other dreamers, all women trying to prove their innocence from different crimes. Originally, Sarah was told that she was only going to be kept there for 21 days, but her stay continues to get extended. One day, a new resident arrives, disrupting the order of the facility and leaves Sarah on a collision course with the very companies that have deprived her of her freedom. This is also a very ominous book, but very much in a different way than what Wakes the Bells was. And it's kind of scary to think about how data could potentially be used for situations like this. And I'm interested to see how the author took this idea and ran with it in this book. The author blurb I'm going to read comes from Jennifer Egan, who is author of The Candy House, which I actually have here, which has kind of like a similar theme to it about dreams and how in this book people can get into other people's dreams to learn about their secrets. So this seemed like a relevant author to blurb this book. What Jennifer Egan says is that this is a gripping Kafkaesque foray into an all too plausible future where data collection penetrates interior life. The Dream Hotel is also an elegant meditation on identity and what we sacrifice unthinkingly for the sake of convenience. So that is The Dream Hotel by Leila Lalami. I'm definitely interested to see how and where the author takes this plot. Another book I'm looking forward to reading. So the next book on my list is Voice of the Ocean by Kelsey and Piaget. I put this book on my list for a couple of different reasons. So I have been following Kelsey on YouTube and Twitch for a very long time. I enjoy her Sims 4 content. She's most known for the 100 Babies Challenge in Sims 4, which was a very entertaining series of videos that she created. She was actually the first person I followed on Twitch and YouTube, and if it wasn't for her, I probably would never have found BookTube, which I'm very, very thankful for. So, of course, I had to put this book on my list as the gaming side of YouTube is now joining forces with the book side of YouTube for me. So, this book is a romantasy that follows mermaids. The blurb for the book says, from popular content creator Kelsey and Piaget, Voice of the Ocean follows a daring young siren who defies her people to save a human prince, unearthing ancient magic and igniting a dangerous romance amidst treacherous waters. I will say books surrounding mermaids are not one of the type of books that I typically use. I don't even know if I ever read a book that had mermaids in it, so this will be a first for me, but I'm excited about it. So this book follows Celeste, who is the youngest daughter of the Siren Queen, and because of that, her life has always been tightly controlled. To prove her worth, she intends on joining the Chorus, which is an elite group of siren warriors. And with her final test coming up, she must gain control of her temperamental song. But then one day, Celeste encounters a seemingly harmless ship that is helmed by Prince Raiden Sharp, and her path veers towards forbidden waters. She believes that Raiden is innocent of any wrongdoing and defies siren law to save Raiden's life, even knowing he is the son of a king who has murdered her kindred. The penalty for her betrayal should be death, but as the daughter of the Siren Queen, the queen instead offers her to assassinate the prince and right her wrong. Celeste ends up agreeing to this, mostly because she wants to find the truth behind the prince's clandestine mission. But the human world is nothing like she expected, nor is the prince the noble and charming man that she thought he was. As Celeste finds her place aboard the ship, friendships between her and the crew begin to grow. And now the question is, will Celeste be able to save herself, or will her choices unravel a kingdom devastating sirens and humans alike? Like I said, this will be the first book I read that is based on mermaid legend, I guess. And I'm excited to check it out and see how I like it. The author blurb for this book comes from Liz Mikulski, who's the author of Darling Girl. And she says, fans of The Little Mermaid and Pirates of the Caribbean will find much to enjoy in this sweetly captivating coming-of-age story set beneath the sea. With love, betrayal, and revenge permeating its depths, Voice of the Ocean will leave its readers waiting for more. If you knew how many times I just recorded that sentence, I would definitely be embarrassed. So that is the blurb for Voices of the Ocean. I can't wait to see how Kelsey does with her first debut novel. Now, the interesting thing I just realized going through this, if anyone does the Reddit fantasy bingo, these first 3 books would fit squares that I'm having trouble with. You have the Eldritch monster in What Wakes the Bells, you have Dreams in The Dream Hotel, and you have a book that takes place mostly underwater in Voice of the Ocean. All right, so let's move on to our 4th book on the list, and that is The Amalfi Coast, not The Amalfi Coast, The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. The reason I put this book in my list is that I lived in Italy for 2 years, and it was in southern Italy. I was within driving distance of the Amalfi Coast, so anytime I see a book that is set in that area, I have to add it to my list because I enjoy reading books that are set in places that I've lived before. So this is kind of like a historical fiction combined with fantasy, combined with mystery, combined with magical realism, and it is coming out on April 29th, 2025. Obviously 2025. I don't know why I said that part. Anyway, this author is most known for her book, The Lost Apothecary, which was her debut novel and received a Goodreads Choice nominee for both historical fiction and debut novel back in 2021. The blurb for this book is powerful witchcraft, a hunt for sunken treasure, forbidden love on the high seas, beware the Amalfi Curse. So this book follows Haven Ambrose, who is a trailblazing nautical archaeologist who has come to Positano, Italy, to investigate the mysterious shipwrecks along the Amalfi Coast. But secretly, she's actually on a quest to locate a trove of priceless gemstones her late father spotted on his final dive. Now, when she arrives in town, strange misfortunes start plaguing the town, and as Haven searches for the sunken treasure, she also begins to unearth a centuries-old tale of ancient sorcery and one woman's quest to save her lover and her village by using the legendary art of Strigharia, which is a magical ability to harness the ocean. So now Haven must unravel the Amalfi Curse before the region is destroyed forever. So sounds like a fun book. I'm excited to check it out and see how I like it. So the author's blurb is from Emily Hart, the New York Times bestselling author of Wayward, and she says, I was spellbound by this story of secrets, shipwrecks, and sea witches. With her clear, dazzling prose, Sarah Penner transported me to the sea-swept cliffs of Positano and introduced me to characters I'll never forget. A magical read. I'm so excited to read a book set along the Amalfi Coast. I haven't read a lot of those recently, and I can't wait to see how the author kind of describes the area and what kind of legends she may use in this book. All right. We are halfway through. Let's move on to the 5th book, which is This Is Not a Game by Kelly Molan. This is a mystery, and either a thriller or a cozy mystery. It's hard to tell by the description. So this book comes out on April 8th, and this is her debut novel. She is inspired by the golden age of detective fiction. So the blurb for this book is very long. I don't even know if you could call it a blurb because it's definitely longer than your typical blurb. But what it says is a unique locked room debut with a memorable intergenerational relationship and gaming angle about a grandmother and granddaughter who are snowed in at a lavish party at a mansion where the host has been murdered, and the unlikely sleuthing pair must draw on a unique skill set to navigate a dangerous game together. So part of the reason I chose this book, other than it being a locked room mystery, is that it takes place on Mackinac Island, and I think that will be kind of a fun setting for this book. So this book follows Mimi and her granddaughter Addie. So Mimi lives on Mackinac Island, which is a unique island where cars are not allowed to go. Her granddaughter Addie is just getting over a breakup with her fiance Brian, who dumped her and then cut her out of the deal for a very successful video game they invented together, with her doing the majority of the work. And one day, Mimi gets this invitation to a charity auction from local socialite Jane Ireland, who's a 70-something narcissistic person who is having an affair with her son-in-law. And Mimi decides to use this to get Addie to join her for the weekend, kind of get her mind off of what's going on with her ex-fiance. She just doesn't tell Addie that a blackmail threat from Jane looms over the party's invitation. So at the party, a big storm rolls in, trapping everyone everyone at the mansion where the party is being held, and then Jane's body is found. So now Mimi and Addie must rely on their skills to narrow down suspects. But then another body turns up and they realize someone else is playing a deadly game and they may not survive the night. So it sounds kind of like a cozy mystery, I would say. I love locked in mysteries because I think they're just fascinating to read. I really love locked in mysteries and I'm excited to read this one and see how the author uses Mimi and Addie to solve this crime, who have no background in solving murders other than Mimi liking crosswords and Addie working on a murder video game. So the author of this comes from Chris Chibnall, who's the author of Death at the White Hart and the television creator of Broadchurch, which is a kind of like a mystery TV show. So he says, a zippy, witty, and delightful game of twists featuring a wonderful new puzzle-solving duo guaranteed to win your heart. So it sounds like it's going to be kind of like a fun book to read, despite, the murders that are occurring on there, and that there's going to be some witty banter, hopefully, and a fun game of twists. So what more could you ask for in a cozy mystery? All right, next up, we are moving back to Europe in a book called What Happens in Amsterdam by Rachel Lynn Solomon. So this is a romance book. This is a romance book. I accidentally forgot to update part of this sheet I'm working on because it says a historical fantasy romance. This is not a fantasy. This is not historical. This is just romance. It confused me for a second. Anyway, this book comes out on May 6th and is by an author who is known for her romantic comedies that she writes for both teens and adults, including The X-Talk and Weather Girl. She's actually originally from Seattle, but is currently living a expat life in Amsterdam. I thought that was interesting since this book is obviously set in Amsterdam and she'll be able to draw on some of her real life experiences living in the city for this book. So the blurb for this book is an actual blurb. It says, falling in love with your husband is anything but convenient in this steamy romance. So this book follows Danny Dorfman, who has made it into her 30s without really knowing what she wants to do with her life. When an office romance ends poorly, she ends up getting fired and she applies to get a job in Amsterdam, not thinking she's actually going to get it. But she ends up getting this job and is planning to use it to escape the mess she made of her life. But by the end of her first week in Amsterdam, she's never felt more adrift or alone until she crashes her bike into her high school ex-boyfriend. So Wouter van Leeuwen was a Dutch exchange student that Danny's family had hosted, and they kind of had a forbidden love that ended in a painful breakup. But now Wouter needs to marry in order to inherit a gorgeous family home on a canal, and when Danny's job falls apart, she needs a visa. So a marriage of convenience takes place that pushes them together in unexpected ways, and Danny must decide whether her new life is yet another mistake or if it's worth taking a risk on a second chance. So I'm excited about this book. I love romances that take place in cities outside of the US. It's always fun to kind of see what it's like living in different cities through reading books. I'm also excited about this marriage of convenience and seeing how that goes with both main characters and how they kind of navigate that. So the author's blurb for this is from Jessica Joyce, who is the best-selling author of You with a View. She says, what happens in Amsterdam is the second chance marriage of convenience romance of my dreams. Danny and Wouter's romance blooms with exquisite tension against the backdrop of a tenderly described Amsterdam, and I saw so much of myself in Danny's path to finding and trusting herself. Rachel Lynn Solomon is one of my favorite authors out there, so it's no surprise that her latest easily takes its rightful place on my favorite shelves. So it's a pretty strong author blurb from Jessica Joyce. So that is our romance on our 8 books to read list. So let's move on to our second to last book, which is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This is a romantasy gothic book and it's coming out on May 20th. You probably recognize the author because she's a very well-known author who has written the Shepherd King duology with the One Dark Window I have over here. haven't read this one yet, and Two Twisted Crowns. This is another long blurb for this book. It says, from book talk sensation and New York Times bestselling author Rachel Gillig comes the next big romantasy phenomenon. A gothic miscloaked tale of a I'm not going to be able to say that word. A gothic miscloaked tale of a prophetess who is forced beyond the safety of her cloister on an impossible quest to defeat the gods with the one knight whose future is beyond her sight. This is actually book 1 in this series. The series is called The Stonewater Kingdom. Not sure how long the series is going to be. This book follows Sybil Delling, who has spent 9 years dreaming of having no dreams at all. Like all the other foundling girls who traded a decade of service for a home in the great cathedral, she is a diviner, and in her dreams, she receives visions from 6 unearthly figures known as omens, and from them she can predict terrible things before they occur. People travel across the kingdom of Trom to see her and learn their futures. Just as she and her sister diviners are nearing the end of their service, a mysterious knight arrives at the cathedral. The knight Roderick has no respect for her visions, but when her fellow diviners begin vanishing one by one, she has no choice but to seek his help in finding them. The main reason I added this is because of the author. I know One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns are much beloved books by a lot of people. I have yet to read it, though I just recently bought them, so hopefully they will be on my upcoming TBRs. But that is the main reason I'm adding this book onto this new release list. The blurb for this book comes from Hannah Witten, who's the author of The Foxglove King. She says, I'm obsessed with Rachel Gillig. The Night and the Moth is achingly romantic, richly imagined, and told with a gossamer delicacy that keeps the pages flying. It doesn't really tell you too much about the book, but, I don't really need to know too much knowing what I know about her first duology, so that is the second to last book on this list. The very last book I'm adding is a middle grade book. It's called The Isle of Ever, and it's by Jen Kalanita. I love the blue on this cover. I think it's just like the most prettiest blue. This book is coming out on March 25th. Did I already say that? I'm not sure. Anyway, it is book 1 in the Isle of Ever series. The author is a YA middle grade author who writes a wide variety of books, including the Secrets of My Hollywood Life series and the Fairy Tale Reform School series. The blurb for this is the first in a brand new series featuring a girl who will inherit a mysterious fortune if she can break a centuries-old curse. So this book follows 12-year-old Everly Benedict, who goes by Benny, and days after her 12th birthday, she learns that she is an heir to a fortune. But to collect the inheritance, she has to win a game by following clues that her ancestors left a long time ago and locating a small island that vanished. She only has 2 weeks to play the game, though, and find the island. If she is successful, she will break a 200-year-old curse, but if she fails, the fortune will be forfeited. And if she is not careful, she'll cross paths with someone else who is after the island's secrets and who will stop at nothing to get them. Because, as it turns out, there's far more than a fortune at stake. I like putting some middle grade books into these new releases here and there because they're usually nice, fun, easy reads, and this one just kind of captured my attention with the game and mystery that needed to be solved in it. So that's why I added it to my new release list for the spring. The author blurb from this comes from Chris Grabenstein, who's the best-selling author of the Mr. Lemoncello library. The blurb says, The Isle of Ever is a gripping game and grand adventure, a treasure hunt filled with riddles, clues, an ancient curse, and a main character you'll be cheering for all the way to the final page. I love it. So like I said, again, excited about the treasure hunt aspect of the plot and can't wait to see what this book is like. So those are the 8 books we'll be adding to our new release jar as they start coming out between March and May. And I think we got a good variety on here. We got some fantasy, some gothic, we got a romance, some just standard mystery, and a middle-aged book. So I'm excited for all of these, and hopefully I will be drawing them in my upcoming TBR games. Thank you for hanging out with me and watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what books you're excited that are coming out in the springtime, or if any of these books caught your attention. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see future videos by me, please hit the subscribe button. My next video coming out will hopefully be my romance reading game, which I'm super excited about. I just finished creating it last night, and I will be doing my first roll of it today. What is today? February 5th. So I can't wait to see what books I am going to be reading on that. Other than that, thanks again for hanging out with me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!